Hello, I'm Kathi Snook from COMAP. Welcome to COMAP's webinar on the Mathematical Contest in Modeling and the Interdisciplinary Contest in Modeling. Please note that we are recording this webinar. This slide shows COMAP's webinar recording policy. In a moment, I'll introduce my fellow panelists and follow the agenda shown on this slide. Please note that we're going to use the chat function on Zoom for the question and answer session. So you'll find the chat button at the bottom center of your screen. You can send questions to the panelists at any time, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the presentation. I am joined today by Saul Garfunkel, the founder and executive director of COMAP. And we're also joined by Amanda Beecher, the ICM contest director from Ramapo College of New Jersey.
Hello.
Additionally, we have John Tomicek, the contest coordinator here at COMAP.
Hello.
And again, I'm Kathi Snook. I'm going to turn the presentation over now to Saul to talk about COMAP background and the history.
COMAP is a nonprofit organization that was founded almost precisely 40 years ago. We have a simple mission to improve the teaching and learning of mathematics for students of all ages. And we've been doing that through the presentation of contemporary applications and mathematical modeling. We've tried to be the answer to the question, what is this stuff good for? Most of our work in the early days and continuing today has been on developing curriculum materials, both for students and for professional development of teachers. We've done this in print, in video, and in multimedia formats. We have individual modules, we have a quarterly journal, newsletter, and even a full Basel high school textbook series. But in addition to the print materials and the multimedia materials, we've also developed international modeling contests. Now, I should say that the purpose of these contests is not simply to reward bright students. The purpose of the contest is to encourage students to embrace the scientific method and sound modeling processes and to effect curricular change throughout the world. These 4 contests have begun with 2 at the high school level, namely the HiMCM contest and a more recent International Mathematical Modeling Challenge, which is in the spirit of an Olympiad where we have 2 teams allowed per country. But today, we're going to focus on our undergraduate contests. The Mathematical Contest in Modeling, which is our first contest and was established in 1985. I should say we had 90 teams from 70 universities in that first 1985 contest. It has grown significantly since then. And then in 1999, we added the Interdisciplinary Contest in Modeling with the purpose of trying to establish questions which required a more in-depth understanding of disciplines outside of mathematics. To describe these contests in much more detail, I'm going to turn this over to Amanda Beecher, who is going to take it from here. Amanda?
Thank you, Saul. So I want to give a little contest overview, and Saul had highlighted a few things about the 2 contests already. These are undergraduate contests. We do have some high school teams that participate. It happens annually in February. There's 100 hours over a long weekend from a Thursday to a Monday in which students attack these problems. They do work in teams of 3 students, all from the same institution. And last year we had over 20,000 teams, so certainly grown from the original 90. Yeah, let me give you an overview of the contest problems. What we call the A, B, and C problem are the MCM, and the D, E, and F problem are for the ICM. And so problem A and B are the original topics started in 1985 and haven't changed since. So those really handle continuous and discrete mathematics. A few years ago, we added the data insights problem to challenge students with their data science abilities. And we have these interdisciplinary contests. The topics have changed over time, but for last year and again this year, we'll have network science or OR, environmental science, and policy. And so students can choose from any of these 6 problems. They don't have to pre-select MCM or ICM. They do get a choice of one of any of these 6 problems. And so one of the questions that I get the most is, well, why are there 2 contests? And so I like to, as the director of the ICM, showcase all the different ways and areas that these problems have addressed in the 22 years we've had the contest. And so you can see that there's a broad range of scientific and background knowledge that students have to use, either because the problem comes from those areas or they have to use some information from those areas to solve the problem. And so it really, you know, Saul said, you know, we tried to at COMAP say, what is this good for? And mathematics is good for so many things in so many ways. And so ICM really challenges us to do that. And I think we see a lot of interdisciplinary mathematics happening more mainstream, but in '99 when this started, that wasn't the case. So it was really a front runner. I want to talk a little bit about what the benefits are for students and advisors to participate in the contest. And for my students, the last bullet about resume and interview booster is what they always come back and talk about. Because this is an opportunity where they can go to an employer and say, I've been able to work on a team in a deadline-driven situation with, you know, to solve a problem and produce a solution. And that's a really nice opportunity for them to showcase that they've done these things. And so we develop that within the contest, but also they can use that and leverage that to really solve greater problems later on. The other piece that they do is they communicate the results, technically in their write-up for the 20-page paper, but also to non-technical audiences. They have to summarize their results, and often there's a page or 2 where they have to write up their results to a non-technical group or administrative body. And so students really have to challenge themselves in multiple ways. As an advisor, I originally became my first entry into the experience of COMAP was as an advisor of the MCM. And every opportunity for mentorship happens. Students get frustrated and they want the perfect data set, and they you know, go through the anguish of solving a really complex problem, and being able to talk to them about those experiences and really mentor them has been quite fantastic. And they become more like colleagues through this experience than students. And so it's been really a rewarding experience in that way. I also hear from so many of our advisors that it creates an opportunity to reach out into colleagues from other disciplines to form these interdisciplinary teams to handle ICM problems. And so it's the opportunity for advisors to really broaden their own mathematics, or to invite people into the mathematical community. And so I would like to just go over some problems from the last few years and to highlight maybe some fun topics, just to give you a flavor of what kinds of questions we ask in the contest. And so last year we had this problem A, which is a continuous math problem. It was to address the ocean changing temperatures due to climate change. So the oceans are actually getting warmer, and fish like a certain type of temperature, so they're migrating to maintain their own habitats. And of course, being able to predict that is very important for fishermen and the fishing industry. And so we challenge students to address that problem. Problem B last year was really fun. Students, they weren't necessarily building sandcastles, but they were thinking about how to build these 3D sandcastles so that they could survive against waves or rain, and really putting some real spatial dynamics and into the problem was fun to read. Problem C, I think a lot of us know if we've ever been on online shopping. There's often rating systems, and there's stars 1 to 5, but there's also an opportunity to give text feedback. So you're able to write in comments and review products. And so students had the data set about this from a particular area, and they were challenged to launch a new product in that demographic using this information. And so it required them to use qualitative as well as quantitative methods. And I think marketing does this all the time. So it's definitely, it is good for something. So the ICM problems, since operations research and network science are opportunities for D, I have given an example of each. A few years ago, there were wait lines in the airports where people couldn't, even if they showed up several hours early, couldn't get through the airport screening process and make their flight on time. And so we asked students to address that problem and how to actually securely and safely get through the airport checks. Last year, we asked students to look at passing network of a football team or soccer team and try to figure out group dynamics and team strategies based on this passing network. Problem E tends to be about a sustainability topic. Last year, they were looking at plastic waste, and there's too much waste that we know how to deal with. And so the question is, how can we limit it? And what does that mean? And what are the implications for doing so? One of my favorite problems is problem F, the policy. I always use this one, it's from a few years ago. But it asks, who should we send to colonize Mars? And this is an opportunity to sort of create a new society in so many ways, governing structure and different things, but also it has to be functional. So who do we send? What's the right group of people? And if we want this colony to survive, there's also demographic information that has to be met. And so how do you figure out all of these puzzles to work? Really challenge students in a multitude of ways, including sort of this human resources problem that big companies face of getting the right people to do the right jobs in a way that can solidify a dynamic team. And so you can see that those questions, what is it good for? I think here you see each and every year that we have problems that are good for a lot of things and really challenge students to address complex problems. So now I'm going to turn it over to John Tomicek, who's going to talk to us about how you can get started and get involved and sign up.
Thank you, Amanda. Hello, my name is John Tomicek, and I'm the contest coordinator at COMAP. I manage and organize the COMAP contest and coordinate the interaction between advisors, team members, judges, and contest directors. I'm going to take this time to highlight the steps involved in forming a team and participating in the MCM-ICM. This slide shows the steps of pre-contest activities for you as an advisor and students. Let's take a look at each step. The first step is to form a team. The team can consist of up to 3 students from the same school and is open to all undergraduate and high school students. A math major is not required, and students may be from any field of study. There is no limit to the number of teams from any one school. The second step is to designate a team advisor. The role of advisor can be filled by any faculty, staff member, or student at your institution, and they do not have to be from the mathematics department. We do encourage advisors to be faculty members who have relationships with the students and other staff members. The advisor is the main point of contact for each team and helps students prepare for the contest. The third step is to review the rules. Teams and advisors are encouraged to review the contest rules on the COMAP website. Even if you've previously participated in the contest, be sure to check the website as the rules change from year to year, and in some extreme cases may change during the contest. One of the best guides for success in the contest is the Procedures and Tips for a Great Experience article on the contest webpage. This article offers before, during, and after contest guidance and many good tips. Step 4 is to register. Any advisor who wishes to sponsor teams in the MCM-ICM contest must register via the online system. The MCM-ICM registration process has been streamlined and split into 2 parts: advisor registration and team registration. It is recommended that you use the Firefox web browser to complete your registration. Advisor registration will move the advisors through a series of screens that ask for an email address and contact information. Enter the required information as you step through the screens. Team registration cannot be completed until the advisor portion is complete. The team portion, contest registration fee, can be completed by anyone, student, professor, or advisor. After your payment is processed, be sure to click on the Click to Complete Registration link. You'll now be assigned a team number. Finally, step 5 is to prepare. Advisors should encourage students to prepare by reviewing and practicing problems from previous years. Problems are found on the contest webpage. Outstanding papers from previous year's contest are found at mathmodels.org. Each year, COMAP also publishes MCM and ICM issues of the UMAP journal. Teams and advisors should familiarize themselves with the contest dates and deadlines. Registration deadline. Teams must register by the deadline to compete. It is recommended that you do not wait until the last minute to register. Teams are encouraged to register well in advance if possible. Contest window opens. The contest problems go live, and the teams can now review the problems and choose any one of the 6 problem choices. Contest window close. Teams should stop working. No more changes can be made after the contest deadline. Solution report deadline. Your solution email should be prepared and sent to solutions@comap.com. Anyone can send this email, team member or advisor. It is recommended that you only send in 1 copy of each submission. Receipt of solution. 24 hours after the report deadline, we recommend that you log into the contest website using the advisor login link to verify that your team's electronic solution was received at COMAP. Contest results. The results will be posted by early May each year. Your advisor will receive an email when the results are available on comap.com. At this point, I would like to invite Kathi back to talk about additional contest information.
Thank you, John. John ended his comments by indicating that the results will be available in May each year. Between the time the contest ends in February and the beginning of May, many judging activities occur. This slide shows what the judges are looking for, in general, for a successful submission. So ensure you follow the contest rules. Make sure you have a great, coherent, organized presentation of your modeling process, and make sure you cite any references that you use. You should look at the references that John indicated for help, as well as the TIPS article and UMAP journals. Additionally, John indicated that there are designations. The designations for all of our contests are based on the pool of papers that are submitted. You'll note here the honorable mention, meritorious, finalist, and outstanding descriptions. Above average papers receive an honorable mention. Excellent papers are designated as meritorious. The best papers go to final judging, where most are designated finalists, and the best of the best are designated as outstanding. COMAP is proud to be a partner with the following organizations shown on the slide. These organizations also sponsor all of our COMAP contests. And more good things in it for our participants. The additional benefit of participating in the contest is to compete for many awards that are given by MCM and ICM. The most prestigious of which is the $10,000 International COMAP Scholarship Award. 4 of these awards are given annually to the top submissions for MCM and ICM. You can see on the slide that there are many more awards sponsored by COMAP as well as our partner organizations. You can get details for these awards on the COMAP website. We have many, many resources for teams and advisors. You can start at the COMAP website and go from there. John mentioned mathmodels.org. There you can find outstanding papers from previous year's contests. On the COMAP website, you'll find the tips article that's been mentioned. And there are many, many free materials. Free is good. So take a look at the tab for free materials. The game report is there. Biomath, which is a great resource, both for high school students and undergraduates. PS Futures, and many more. You can find all the up-to-date contest information at the COMAP website, as well as we will tweet it out. You can follow us at COMAP Math on Weibo, or you can email COMAP at info@comap.com if you have questions. Additionally, we will take the recording of this webinar and it will also be posted on our website and at mathmodels.org. So you can go back and review the information that perhaps we went through fairly quickly and look at the slides that were presented. I'm now going to allow you to enter your questions into the chat, and we'll stop sharing the presentation so that you can talk to our panelists. And I would ask our panelists to unmute at this time. Okay. We do have a question here. If we are at a large university, how do we know if there are other teams at our school? John, would you like to address that?
Prior to the contest starting, there would be no way for us to know how many teams there are for any given school. After the contest is over, though, when the results are announced, you can find that information on our website by looking at the full results. If you ever had a question and you wanted to find out if there were other teams at your school or how many teams competed from your school, you could very easily just email us your question after, or even if you wanted to know during the contest, we could email you back and let you know how many teams there were from any given school.
Right, thanks, John. We get many questions that we'd like to address in this presentation also, so I will ask a few of our panelists to address some of these. For Amanda, can you tell us what level of mathematics is required for the MCM and the ICM?
Whatever you know. Really, the idea is to use whatever mathematics you know to address the problems. And what we find is that some of our most outstanding teams don't use very high-level math, but they explain it well. They explain all of their processes. They explain their methodology and why they thought that this particular method would work in this situation. And so it's really about justifying your steps and having thoughtful reasoning as to why you're doing what you're doing. And one of the biggest things we do notice is that students that have mathematics they really understand do a better job because it can better communicate it. And that's the number one thing that our judges look for, is that they can really understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. And so I think that's one thing that I think we see is students trying to use some fancy tool from a software package, but they don't really understand what's going on behind it. And unfortunately, they don't do very well because they're not able to really address the problem of why is this the right tool for this problem. So
excellent, thanks, Amanda. We do have an administrative question on the chat about the number of schools or the number of teams per school. And with that question, I'm going to turn that to John to tell us about the number of teams that participate in MCM and ICM and address the question of number of teams per school.
Okay, last year we had over 20,000 teams register and compete in the contest. There is no limit to the number of teams allowed per university. It's unlimited. So you can have as many teams as you want from a single university. Again, they don't have to be from the math department. They can be from any department at the school. Also, an advisor can advise as many teams as they want. There's no limit to how many teams one advisor can look over. It's not unusual for a faculty advisor to have multiple teams, a whole class competing in the contest and using the contest as, say, a final exam for that course.
Great. And I know this year there's some question about virtual learning and doing the contest virtually, since we have schools that are in-person, hybrid, and totally virtual. John, can you address what we've advised teams to do?
This year, we're allowing teams to use electronic means to communicate, whether it be a Zoom call, FaceTime, chat board, any type of electronic communication to get together and work remotely and safely amongst their team. Teams do have to continue to follow the rules online, whereas you cannot talk to anyone outside of your team, meaning that if you're a team of 2 or 3, then you cannot talk to anyone outside of your team members, meaning only the 3 people on your team. So yes, you can work remotely, and we found starting last year, because of the virus, we had a lot of teams that functioned very well doing it that way.
Excellent. Just while we're on admin, and you'll see that John will answer all the admin questions, and you can also email him at info@comap.com. We've had a page restriction this year to 25 pages. Can you explain that restriction, John?
Sure. We've changed the rules so that the maximum length of your paper is 25 pages. That includes all parts of your paper, including the summary sheet, table of contents, references, and any appendices. So it's a maximum of 25 pages. As long as you come under that 25 pages, then you're good to go. But every part of your paper is counted in that 25 pages.
Great, thanks. I'm going to ask Saul to talk for a bit on, since the contest has been going on for some time, can you tell us the changes that you've seen in the MCM and ICM over the years in terms of the submissions that we see and the modeling processes used?
Well, I mean, there is no question that students have gotten more sophisticated. We have, from relatively early on, started to get more high school students and high school teams that have entered. We take a broad view of the word undergraduate, so high school teams have joined us. It speaks very much to Amanda's point that it's the mathematics you understand and can use rather than how sophisticated the mathematics might be. I like to tell the anecdote about our first high school team, which came from North Carolina School of Science and Math, where the problem that they were solving was an optimal circuit pattern problem, where there was a boat off the coast of the US, and it was suspected of running drugs, and the Coast Guard had a helicopter, and the idea was for the helicopter to go out and find that boat with the best possible pattern. And the high school team was the only team, including teams from Berkeley and from the top US universities, that recognized that they didn't actually have to find the boat. They could find the wake of the boat and follow the wake back toward the boat. Now, there was no sophisticated mathematics in that understanding of thinking the problem through. And I think that is the point. I should also say that papers have just gotten better. We have been, to a large extent, successful in the sense that modeling has now become a mainstay of undergraduate education, and in some places in high school as well. And you find students who are more comfortable with the modeling process. And in fact, they've been able to do some extremely nice work. So I think that overall, the papers have gotten better. And the students have gotten a better understanding of what modeling is about. I mean, as John pointed out, many schools, either during the contest or afterwards, use the contest problems as the basis of modeling courses or prepare for next year's contest. And so students are more comfortable, and teachers for that matter, with developing courses and developing modeling education. I think that's always been our optimal goal, to have all mathematics courses at all levels incorporate good examples, real problems, and to do modeling from the beginning. And so it's not such a strange idea as it maybe have seen in 1985. So things have gotten better, and the students are better, and the papers are better, and the numbers, of course, are quite large, because we're dealing with more and more papers, and we look forward to that. I should also say that more countries have been applying, so that, you know, we started out with just US, and Chinese joined us, and now we probably have 20, 25 countries that participate in the contest. So in many ways, I think we're getting more successful, and I think that we look forward to the contest continuing to grow.
Great, thanks, Saul. I think you can see, John, there's a question in the chat about kind of the breakdown of how many teams work on each of the problems, A through F. Do you have that data? Because I can give you a minute to get it.
I don't have it in front of me, the breakdown per problem. Amanda, what do you know off the top of the head what your breakdown was for the ICM?
Last year was a little different because we had 2 contest weekends due to the pandemic. But F was our largest problem. I think all of them were within 1,000 of each other, F and then E and then D. But they were, with the exception of the C problem, the data insights, I think they were almost all fairly close to each other in terms of the distribution.
If you go to our website, there's an ICM press release and an MCM press release. If you look at those press releases, it gives you a percentage and a breakdown of each problem, how many teams for each problem. So you can view that right on our website.
But these vary from year to year. Some years, certain problems become more popular than others, and we don't in any way set any standard for this. If students like the A problem or B or C or D, it's up to them, and that it does change from some year to year.
And it should be clear that teams can choose any one of the 6 problems. They don't need to choose prior to seeing the problem. What happens is all the problems go live, and then the students read and review all 6 problems as they start, and then they talk amongst the teams, and we've had reports of teams arguing out, trying to decide which problem to choose of the 6. And then they'll come to terms, and they may start working on 2 and then narrow it down to 1 problem, and then just move forward with that 1 problem through the whole contest.
And we should note they should only turn in the solution to 1 problem.
Correct.
Thanks. I have a couple questions for Amanda that we had in a previous webinar about how you judge the contest submissions. Is there a set rubric or something that we publish beyond the general guidance that's in the TIPS article or the UMapp journals?
I was just going to actually say that in the rules, they talk about judging and the importance of the math modeling process. And our judges talk about that and talk about how this problem can be mapped onto those same wickets. So we actually use the basis of what we put out for our students as the basis for our rubrics. And we look at how teams address those components. So that is really the basis of the judging, to say, you know, how are they successfully doing the modeling and explaining their modeling. And like I said, communication is always the first thing that can set a paper up or take a paper down. So you really want it to be clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
And in that regard, though, although the rubric is the general best practices of modeling, the modeling process, how many different solutions do you see for each of the problems? So
Oh, many.
If I'm looking at all the A problems, how many different ways will students address that problem?
You'll see a lot of different ways. There's a few we usually kind of anticipate, maybe thinking through the problem as it's created. But we get students that use all different levels of mathematics, different approaches. Sometimes we have students that do the continuous problem and use discrete methodology, or use continuous methodology on discrete problem. So even within those, a lot of different variations. Certainly within the interdisciplinary contest and modeling, we see a lot of different things because we have students that know the science aspect to it and sort of take off from what is the methodologies common in that scientific discipline. And we have other students that say, well, I'm comfortable with the mathematics, and how can I apply this mathematics to this problem or information? So there's a lot of different aspects that come out. And I think that's what's so fun about these problems, and judging them and reading them, that's what makes it fun for me.
Great, thanks. I want to remind all our participants that you can send any questions that you'd like to have answered by our panel to the chat. And of course, we are going to keep discussing questions that usually come up, but we'd like to answer your specific questions if you have some. And we have another one. Could you talk about who the judges are? I mean, not in detail, but generally, you know, who they are. Amanda, you would be good to answer.
Yes. So we have, in fact, this is in the UMAP journal. We, especially for the interdisciplinary contest and modeling, we look for people that are in math modeling as well as people that are in the scientific domains. We want multiple perspectives because this is an interdisciplinary contest. And our team of final judges also represent a broad perspective, so that teams can really get evaluated on multiple levels from experts and with different viewpoints. So that's what makes the judging very rich and interesting. They come from across the different types of institutions, different departments. They're not all mathematicians, for example. We get a lot of industry as well as academic judges.
Okay. Some more logistics questions that I know John gets all the time. So I'm going to let John talk a few minutes about the most common questions he gets, and he can put out the information for that, like certificates, for example.
Okay, so we'll start a little bit about teams and get into a little more detailed about forming a team. A team can consist of up to 3 students, but it does not have to be 3 students. It could be a team of 1, which we've had in the past, a team of 1, a team of 2, or a team of 3. But the maximum is 3 team members. And the order of the student names on a certificate has no bearing or importance on participation. In the eyes of COMAP and the contest directors, all the team members are equal. And the student information is input by the team advisor. We do not change that. We don't change the orders. So to repeat that, it's a true team competition. We look at every team member as equal. So the order of the names have no bearing whatsoever on the contest certificate. And again, the students can come from any department in the school. As long as they're from the same school, they can be from any department or any field or any area. And it is available only to undergraduate students at this time. And so no one above that can compete in the contest or be on a team. It is also available to anybody lower than undergraduate, meaning high school or anything lower than that. It's not unusual for us to have many high school teams compete in the contest.
Great, thank you. We did have a question on our last webinar that maybe, Amanda, you can address about what software is allowed for students to use, or if they have to use software or programming in addressing our MCM and ICM problems.
No. What I find for software, I get this question a lot as well. We allow you to use whatever you have access to. We're very lucky right now that there's a lot of great open source software that can address these problems, that you don't have to stay fixed with what your university offers. But what we find is students use what they're comfortable with. You know, if they learned Mathematica or MATLAB at their school, that's what they use. If they're Python programmers, that's what they use. Some learn other softwares, and so there's no restriction. But it does need to be clear, especially if you use images or graphics from that software, that you're letting us know that it came from that. So I know 1 year there were a lot of images that looked the same, and it was because the software defaults were set as such. So it's always nice to also cite that you use certain software packages.
Great, thank you. Again, send in your questions to chat if you'd like to. At this time, and I'll give the panelists a few minutes to think about this, I'm going to ask each panelist to provide maybe what they think are the best advice to teams and or advisors who are going to participate in the contest. And I'm the director of the high school contest, so you can send questions about that also, but I'll start off while they're thinking of maybe something they would like to, information they would like to put out to you. So one of the things that I see both as in the high school level and as a judge at the MCM-ICM level is how impressed I am and how easy it is to take a look at papers that are well organized and use mathematics that the students really understand and can explain. And so I'm always looking for a paper that at the beginning tells me about the problem and what the students are going to do, and then actually walks through almost as if they're telling me a story. And they use good modeling processes and they explain what they're doing. And so that I really get the idea that they understand the mathematics and that they're analyzing the problem correctly and that they can communicate their results to me. And then they wrap up their paper by telling me what their conclusions are, doing maybe some strengths and weaknesses and some sensitivity. So I'm a big organization presentation of your work, but that's based in good mathematics and good processes. So who would like to go next?
I'll take a shot. We did a survey a while back in which we were trying to decide why the contest was as successful as it was and what people thought. And we asked students what was the hardest part of the contest and what was the most satisfying part of the contest. And in both cases, we got the same answer. And the answer was working in a team. Typically in mathematics education, and I think it's a shame, we don't give students an opportunity to work together. We in fact have a pencils up, pencils down, don't look at your neighbor's paper kind of mindset. And that's just not the way the real world works. When you leave school, you wind up, if you're in industry or government or whatever, you wind up working with others. And one of the reasons that we focus so much on communication is because you have to talk to other people, you have to convince them, you have to work with them. So students at this level just don't have examples of that. They just don't work together often, certainly not in things that are mathematical. So on the other hand, as the same students said, this was the best experience they had. Not only was it hard to get used to it, but it was really satisfying to actually succeed in doing that. So I think if it were me, my advice is practice, do problems together, get together with a team, go through the group dynamics, work together. I have one of the schools that has been very successful in the contest in Shanghai. The advisor suggests you work with friends, that you know each other, that you get together, you have a social interaction. It's extremely important because it's so different from the work that they've done in mathematical ideas and mathematics courses up to this point. So yeah, I think it's sort of a trivial comment, practice, 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 but I think it's very important, and in particular, practicing this idea of working together in groups.
Amanda or John?
You guys took the best two.
Right.
I always think about the communication, and not just the communication in the paper, but also the communication as a team. And that's great advice. I've noticed some of my own teams have done better when they work with friends and people that they've worked with before, because they know their strengths and weaknesses. One thing in terms of the problem that I've been noticing that maybe could be some good advice for teams. Sometimes students, I'm not sure if they're running out of steam or what, but they have these results or recommendations at the end that are grandiose or maybe are obvious, or things that, like, we would love to solve this problem, you know, by doing this X, Y, and Z, but it's not based on their modeling. And I think one of the things that we, especially I know this year for the UMAP journal, really focused on it is connecting your results and your recommendations with your model. Students have a hard time doing that, but to think about, if this is what I want the outcome to be, how does my model speak to that? How do I actually provide more information about moving that forward? And so that's the advice that I would give students is, you know, I find these results sometimes to be separate from all this great work that they did, and it really needs to be tied together. And so to think about those questions and to say, okay, if this is what the result is, how does my model address that? And to think about those implications, and to really have your results and recommendations being based on the work that you did, and not some general ideology that might not be able to come out of that work. And so I think teams that move forward and move up in the designations really do a good job of that. So looking maybe at the mathmodels.org, some of the outstanding papers, but I see teams struggle with that. So to really spend some time and think about that, because often that's the end, right? The last few pages of writing on Monday evening. So to really think about that and practice how the results are really connected to your work.
Okay, so I'm going to go over a lot of the common problems that teams have. One big thing that I don't think anybody's mentioned yet is time management. These teams really need to manage their time during this weekend. A real common problem is that they don't manage their time correctly, and then they find out that time's running out on them very quickly, and their back's against the wall. And then they make common errors, such as transcribing numbers in their papers, their control numbers or their team numbers. They transcribe the numbers wrong, and they submit a wrong solution, and then they submit multiple solutions. It's recommended that you only submit one solution, and make sure that you check those numbers and leave yourself a little time at the end to make sure that you got all the information correct before you submit your email. Now, again, anybody can send it in your team, but just make sure you leave enough time at the end to do that. We also accept partial solutions. So if you find that you're at the end of the weekend and your solution isn't complete, or if you're not happy with it 100%, don't just not submit it. Definitely submit it. We take partial solutions and we grade those. You'll still get a grade as long as you submit something that the judges think that you made an effort, and that they see some math involved, and an honest effort is there. We'll still judge those papers. So please send them in. It doesn't have to be a complete, and we understand that sometimes we get partial solutions. So do send those in. The other thing is that we have a summary sheet template that is now on the website. We have a LaTeX version and a Word version. We recommend that you download those early, take a look at them. They're set up in the format for the contest that's in the correct font, the correct font size, and the correct layout. You can use any one of those that you want. They're just suggestions. You're not required to use any one. You could use your own if you wanted to, but it's very helpful to have that template to work off of because it gives you the correct settings. Also, when you read the problems, make sure that you read the requirements at the end of each problem, because that'll outline if they're requiring for a memo or a letter to an organization, as well as the page length, what's counted in the page length, and all the other features of a paper. And it's different problem to problem. Some problems may require a memo, some may not. So you're going to want to read those carefully each year and each problem before you make your decision, and make sure you, again, leave time at the end to make sure you check off all the requirements that are listed there. The other thing is, read the rules. Don't share information online during the contest. Don't post your paper or your partial solution on chat boards or anything that outside of your team. Again, you can only talk to team members, no one outside of your team. If you have a question, you can pose that question to your advisor. And if your advisor is not sure, they can contact us and we'll respond back with a response. But basically the chain should be, if you have a question, contact your advisor. If your advisor can't answer the question or is not sure, then they can reach out to us and then we can respond to the advisor. Also, COMAP will never ask you to purchase materials online. Meaning during the contest, if you see someone selling a solution or selling a data set to help you solve the problem, they're not endorsed by COMAP. We will never ask you to purchase anything outside of the information that's given in the problem. So when the problems are uploaded to the contest website and you download those, the information should all be enclosed, meaning data sets and the outline of the problem should be there. We'll never direct you to another website where you have to purchase anything additional. If someone tells you that you need to, then they're lying. We never charge for anything outside of that. So I think that touches upon a lot of the stuff that I see, the errors that I see during the contest, but time management is the big thing that I wanted to stress.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, because those were really, really good advice to both students and advisors. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and thank the panelists on the webinar, and I will share my screen to give you some contact information for us. Saul, Amanda, John, info@comap.com will always get you to COMAP, and then we'll get you to the correct person. The website is shown, as well as following us on Twitter and on Weibo at COMAP China Official. Again, thank you for attending this MCM-ICM webinar. Please let us know if you have any questions, and this webinar will be posted at the COMAP website and mathmodels.org. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.